So, thank you for joining us for this very latest MCC live stream. And we are focusing this afternoon on literacy with iPad, a hugely important topic, one that I think is on everybody's minds at the moment, especially after a couple of terms in the last year. Where children perhaps haven't had the writing and reading practice that they would normally have had. So let me introduce myself. I'm Richard Child. I'm the Education Manager for MCC Digital. We are an Apple Authorized Education Specialist. And with me, as ever, is my good friend, Apple Professional Learning Specialist, David Kirtland. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take you through I think three main areas this afternoon. So David's going to take us through iPad and some of the great tools built into iPad that you can use with children of any age group that will support literacy, reading, writing. Then we're going to hear from our friends at two app developers. So I'm really pleased to say that we've got guests from Caligo to talk around their writing app, which uses the iPad and a stylus, and actually very cleverly gives feedback on a student's writing. We're going to take a look at that app. And then we're going to hear from Phonetti. And this is an amazing app, again, utilizing the technology that's built into your iPad to provide visual feedback on reading. I know you're going to look forward to, you're going to enjoy that. I'm certainly looking forward to seeing it again. And then we'll wrap up. So it's going to be around 25 minutes on each of those. And we'll also hear from a school in Chorley in Lancashire who are using Caligo, and we'll hear how they've actually seen it working in practice in their settings. So I'm going to hand over now to David, who, if you want to say hello and reassure me if you can plug your iPad in, and we'll take a look at how iPad can assist with literacy. Over to you, David.
Great, thank you, Richard.
Stop sharing, haven't I? There we go.
I'm just going to share my iPad screen now so you can see exactly what I'm doing on my iPad. So there we go. So as Richard says, we are going to see some amazing stuff this afternoon from Caligo and from Phonetti. But just to kind of get us going, I just want to spend a little bit of time having a look at some of the things that we can do to promote literacy just using the iPad kind of as it is, using the apps that we get with the iPad, and maybe one or two others, depending how much time we have as we're talking through this. So the iPad comes with some really nice built-in tools anyway. And I just want to start really with a couple of apps that we kind of neglect a little bit because we focus on the bigger ones we get. The nice things like iMovie and GarageBand and Keynote and Pages are amazing apps. But let's just start by reminding ourselves that we do get a couple of really useful, quite simple apps, which are great in the classroom. And the first one there is the Notes app. And the Notes app is just a really simple text-based tool. There I am in my app now. I've got a new note here, so I've got the full screen. I can hide the keyboard away, but this is just a great place to start developing some of those literacy ideas, and that could be as simple as asking the children to note down their thoughts on a particular topic, obviously depending on the age of the children we're working with here, but just to start working with some of the tools that we can use across the iPad. They work here in the Notes app, but they will equally work in things like Pages or Keynote. So let's just have a look at some of the quick features here. So obviously I've got my on-screen keyboard, and as we're working through this, we could just type simply in here. Let's put a simple line in. This is our new note, because we're just doing a quick little test here. Now, obviously, we have the keyboard. We can just type on it, and we've got those fairly good typing skills here. If you are wanting to promote typing skills, iPads do talk to physical Bluetooth keyboards anyway, so we can still build that into the curriculum. But if you are using the on-screen keyboard, it's worth pointing out we do get these kind of grayed out numbers and symbols at the top of each of these keys. So we can simply pull them down. Instead of switching the keyboard view, we can actually just pull the keys down to change to the different features here. We can do this exactly the same with maybe the parentheses or the different symbols that we have for each of the letters. So the keyboard itself gives us some very nice, simple ways of putting the content in there. And it could just be simply asking children to make lists and start creating ideas that we can then turn into a discussion or a debate and start summarizing our thoughts there. But on the keyboard, and this is across the whole iPad, so wherever we have keyboard input, we do get this really useful little button down in the left-hand corner. And this is the built-in dictation feature. This is using Siri throughout the iPad here. And this just works. We don't have to train it. We don't have to plan to use it. That button is just there. Now, the very first time you do press that button, it will ask you if you want to enable dictation, which obviously you do, because that's why we press the button. We want to use it there. But if we just tap the button now, let's just see how this works. This is our test to try the dictation feature. Full stop. New paragraph. Here we can see how we put text into our document. Full stop. Okay, now, as we've been going through there, you can see that's automatically transcribed everything we've been saying there, and it's fairly accurate. It has made a slight mistake at the end there, but we can go back and correct this, but it does work reasonably well. And we don't have to train it because people have been talking to their phones for a long time. We've been talking to them, asking Siri to do things for us. So it started to recognize lots of different accents and different ways of phrasing things. So it is fairly accurate without doing too much there. Now, you might have noticed that it's put some blue lines on our text here. Now, you've probably seen something similar when you're using a word processor anyway, when it puts red lines under words, and that's the spell check. So it's telling us we need to go back and just check that phrase in there, the spelling there. The blue lines are when it's correcting the phrasing, the context that we're saying. So it might have slightly misheard what we've said. It might have understood two words which sound similar but have different meanings, and maybe it's picked the wrong one there. But the iPad will go back and it will look at the context of it and try and update it and correct it. And I think that's what it's done there by putting that extra bit in at the end of the sentence there about the Word document. So we can always go back and we can edit it, but it is giving us that heads up that it's listening to the context of the phrasing. So being able to put text in verbally is really quite nice for some children. And it is quite a powerful tool because it is across the whole iPad. Now, if we kind of build on that a little bit further, I'm going to jump out of notes for a moment, and I'm going to have a look at my settings. And in the settings, if we look at the left-hand side, we found general. Let's go a little bit further down and we'll find accessibility. Now, this is a whole different topic. This is a completely different webinar to go through all the accessibility features on the iPad. And there are some amazing things that the iPads do to help people access the device. But in this top box here, which is marked vision, there are 2 or 3 options which are great for a lot of children in school anyway. And some of these I would recommend we use, and some of them probably just leave turned on all the time. And at this stage, the one I want to just kind of highlight is towards the bottom of the list, and that's the spoken content option. And in spoken content, we've got a few options here. I've got speak selection turned on. Now, by default, that is turned off, and I would turn that on and just leave it on all the time on your device. And the reason for that is that this is useful now across web pages, across books, or as in our case, across documents that we might have asked the children to create themselves. And I've also got a couple of other options turned on with it. I've got highlight content turned on. All that means is as the iPad will read out text, it will highlight the word at the same time. It kind of flashes it in blue. Now, we can change the voice, we can change the accent, we can change the speed as well if we want, but I'll just leave that turned on as it is. So when I go back to this, maybe we're in a website and we're promoting that independence. We're saying find some facts. We might even have a pen and paper at the side. Go through that website. Here's our topic today. Can you find and highlight the facts? So we're picking out the important content, but we're also writing them down. If we come across words we're not sure of, we can now use this feature to hear those. In our case, I'm going to go to notes where we've just been writing our own text, whether that's typed in or whether that's verbally put in with the dictation feature. But if I now double tap on a word, and this is the same whether we're doing that independent research on a website, I get this black menu pop up. And we get the usual things, cut, copy, and paste. But I've also got things like I've got lookup, So I've got a built-in dictionary on the iPad. So we don't need third-party dictionary apps. We've got one built into the iPad. But more importantly, because we've turned that accessibility option on, we have that speak option. And if I tap the speak option,
Here.
we've just heard the iPad read out the word. So if that's a word they don't recognize, that combination of letters, we can verbally hear what it's saying. We can get the iPad to speak it out. I've got those two little handles. I can now pull it out to the sentence. So I can hear the word now in the context of the whole sentence or the whole paragraph. Let's speak the sentence.
Here we can see how we put text into a Word document.
So the iPad does a really nice job of reading out any text, whether it's individual words. In this case, it's a sentence. It could be a full paragraph. But that can be a really powerful tool in helping the children develop that independence when they're doing their research and finding facts out, or we've given them documents that we might want them to work on independently. Now, I've done this here with a document we've started creating. I've done it in notes, but it could be pages, it could be Word, it doesn't matter. We've all been there in a classroom where we've asked the children to write something. They've given us it back and we've kind of looked at it and said, have you checked this? Have you read through it yourself? And the children usually agree with us furiously, but they either have or they've done it very briefly and they've not really looked at the details of it. And what we could do is say, actually, now just start listening back to it. So write your document. And if you don't notice the mistakes so much as we're reading it back, we can actually start listening back to it as well. So they can listen back to their own work, which is quite a powerful tool in saying, actually, let's reflect on what you've written here. Let's listen to the sentences. Are they fragments? Are they really long sentences? Have you put any grammar in there at all? And because Siri will speak out with the inflections appropriate to the grammar that they're putting in, well, actually, they might realize, maybe I do need some commas here. Maybe that is a long sentence. I can put a full stop and we can put capitals back in. So that learning process is quite nice, being able to listen back to someone else reading it, or in this case, the iPad reading it as it's been written. So just turning that spoken content on, that speak selection there, is a really nice, simple tool. Now, you probably noticed when we did the dictation as well, we had to verbalize the grammar. So we do need to say things like full stop and new sentence and new paragraph. But again, that's a really nice point, just to make the children have that extra step in there. So we are thinking about it, actively engaging with it, and we're putting it into the context there. So just a couple of really nice basic features across the iPad. We've seen them here in the Notes app. It is worth pointing out, while we're in Notes, we do get some tools up at the top edge of this. So we've got a pen tool. So if we do want to write on the iPad, either with our fingers or with a stylus, if it's the older children, we can write into the Notes app or any of the other apps like Pages and Keynote as well. We can bring images in with the camera. Just a handy hint here, by the way, if we do press the camera button, we've got a scan documents option. This is really useful. If we've got some paper-based resources, we can scan them into the iPad and then send them to the children. So these could be handwriting exercises or reading exercises that we can then send digitally to the children. Scanning documents, it's a little bit like taking photos. It does use the camera, and you've probably done that, but then we have to go through the process of cropping it and straightening it up and correcting that perspective if we've looked on a funny angle and things. It does all that automatically for you. It's really quick, really easy, and it's a nice, handy little option, that scan documents feature there. You can also access it through the Files app as well, so you can create a collection of these resources. And of course, we've got that final little checkbox, so we can be making lists that we ask the children to tick off and tick as they're working through them. So Notes is a lovely little app. Let me just show you a couple of ideas. This was one I was doing with a group not long ago, where we were asking children to work in pairs and say, right, let's think about the type of food you eat. And we were making lists of healthy snacks and unhealthy things that they eat. We did some nice little doodles here to make it look nice. We did it with handwriting, but it could be typed, it could be text as well. We're creating these lists as much as anything to make them think about the content and the subject matter, but so that there's that option there to discuss it with the person next to them. Trying to create discussion and arguments and debate is a really powerful tool, and just making the notes here to format it and structure it so we are encouraging children to do that is a really nice option. Now, of course, with these things on an iPad, we do have the option to send copies using that share button, that square with the arrow. So we can send these to something like Shobi or Google Classroom, depending what we're using on the device in our school. It is worth pointing out all of these things are collaborative. Where it says share note, I could have a collaborative document so multiple children could work on the document simultaneously. And a lot of things across the iPad are collaborative like that. It's just looking for that little icon there. So Notes is a great app to just start promoting that kind of debate in the discussion and putting ideas down quickly and get them to explain some of their features. Now, the second app I want to mention here is probably the most forgotten app on the iPad, and it's the Voice Memos app. And this has been there for a long time, but a lot of people don't realize it is there. And this is, again, a really simple but quite nice and effective app for us to use. And Voice Memos, if we open it, looks a lot like the Notes app we've just been in, but here we get a record button down at the bottom. So I've got some options here now to create a new voice recording, and voice recordings can be really powerful in the classroom, whether that's for me as a teacher to do this and create assessment and feedback, or whether it is more for the children to do reading practice and capture that so we can see that progression, maybe the children to reflect on a particular activity, or just talk us through what they're doing. Now, to create a new app, a new memo, we simply just tap that red record button. This is our first voice memo that we're using on the iPad. And I tap the record button again to stop. And we can see there, we've now got a nice graphical representation of sound. There's our waveform. It's showing me the loud bits and the quiet bits. To fast forward and rewind, I do just grab that waveform and pull it past that blue line. It works exactly like a lot of the other apps on the iPad, same as if we're handling audio on iMovie, for example. So to rewind, let's press play. This is our first voice memo that we're using on the iPad. So nice and simple. Now, I am showing my age a little bit here because it does work a lot like a cassette recorder. So if you ever did use cassettes, you'll notice that if I place the blue line to the end of the recording, my red record button now has become a resume button. So I can just add an extra bit of recording onto the end of this. So this could be a learning diary, and we're just getting the children to top it up with these extra little bits of tell us what you've learned here, what your understanding is, what your knowledge is. If I place the blue line over the top of my recording, that red button now becomes a replace button. So we are recording over the top of it, just like a cassette recorder would do. So it's nice and easy to use. There's nothing any more complicated than that. We do get a couple of buttons up at the top of the screen. We've got a magic wand and we've got a trim tool. And the magic wand, you might have seen that before if you've tried any of the photo editing on the iPad. And the magic wand in photos, you tap it and it tries to make your photos look a bit better. It makes them brighter, maybe a bit more colorful. In here, it does the same. It just tries to make the audio sound better. Now, you probably won't hear this over Zoom, but there's a little bit of background noise, a little bit of hiss in this recording. This is our... And you can hear it, particularly in the quiet bits here, before we get into the louder bits where I'm speaking. But if I press the magic wand, it just removes all that hiss. This is our first voice. And you get a much cleaner, a much quieter recording with no background noise, but the voice is nice and clear and loud now. So that's a nice handy little button to use. Similarly, there's the trim tool. So I can see there's a bit of a gap before I start speaking here, but we can just push the yellow ends in and maybe pull the yellow ones in at the end. Just trim out those bits of silence. Exactly like iMovie works. There's that consistency across the whole device here. So let's just trim that. So nice and simple. That's kind of all there is really to this, but creating reading logs or getting the children to read practice out, that record button is quite powerful just because psychologically, once we've hit record, children tend to focus a little bit more on the words and the forming of the sounds and so on. So let's save that. We're done. And there's my new recording. We can name it up here. So let's call it reading practice. And that's named there. And as always, there's our share button. So we could upload this to Shobi or Seesaw or Google Classroom, whatever platform we're using in school. So we can evidence that kind of reading log if we want to. And it's so quick and so simple and easy to use. Now, if we progress on, I'm just going to jump into Pages for a moment. And Pages is kind of just it's the full word processing app. So it's taking those things we've just seen in Notes, but it gives us more options. So let's just have a quick look at one of the really nice features in Pages. Now, we spend a lot of time creating video on iPads, and we evidence a lot of the learning that way. And it's great, and we talk about video a lot, but really it's a literacy project because it's all about the research, it's all about the facts and the understanding, and it's all about the scripting of the content. And a lot of children jump in and just want to stand in front of a green screen and put themselves in a different context and tell us about their subject. And quite often they'll remember a sentence and then kind of forget quite what they're saying. So it makes it a lot easier if we do script it out first. Now, it works really nicely if we've got enough iPads in the school so we can have the children working in groups. So we're making the iMovie and filming all on one device, but on a second device, we can write the script in Pages. So I've got the beginnings of a script here that's just typed in, could be using the dictation feature, but just typed into Pages. And we can add more and more to it. But one of the lovely features about Pages is that if I go up to the top corner, we've got a More button. That's the 3 dots in the circle. And we see the More button on a few apps on the iPad now. And it's always worth pressing the More button because there's usually something quite interesting in there. And there's a nice one here. If we tap on it and look further down the list, we have an option called Presenter Mode. And Presenter Mode is brilliant in the classroom because if I tap Presenter Mode, it turns my script and my iPad into an auto cue. And it works just like an auto cue or a teleprompter in a real life TV recording studio. It puts a black background on, it puts the text in white, and it slowly scrolls past the screen. So I can have one child holding up an iPad to do the filming, and the second child holding up this iPad as close as you can to the camera. So it looks like the presenter is reading, is looking at the camera, but they're really reading this auto cue on the second iPad. And it slowly scrolls past the screen. And if we're not quite keeping up with it, we tap it and it pauses just like a real auto cue. And we tap it again and it continues. Now we can press the 2 A's in the top corner. We can even change the colors if that helps having a different contrast relationship for the children to be able to see it a bit easier. We can make the text even bigger if we want. The first time you do use this, you will need to turn on auto scroll. Otherwise, we're doing this manually and dragging it around. But auto scroll will let it scroll past the screen. And when we're finished, we just tap done, edit our script, maybe add a bit more to it and go back to presenter mode. And we've got the script again. So a really nice tool that's just there in Pages, and it really does engage a lot of the children with developing their script. Type it in, use that screen reader, the spoken content, so we can listen to it back and make sure it does make sense and it flows. Turn it on to presenter mode, and then we can perform it and record it as part of our film production. So Pages has that really nice option in there. It's just developing those ideas a little bit further. Now, just to finish with, really, I just want to have one more look at a nice app, which is not one of the ones that's bundled into the iPad, but it is a very, very common one that a lot of schools buy. It tends to be the first app schools go with, and that's Book Creator. And we go with Book Creator a lot, partly because it's so flexible, but it's so simple and easy for the children to use. And I use this a lot with early years and Key Stage 1, but similarly, you could use this with Key Stage 2 or even Key Stage 3, really, because it's all about the content and how we use it as a teacher. And Book Creator is just so simple and flexible that we don't have to worry about how to use it. So I've got some of the books we've been creating just here on my desktop here. Let's have a quick look. I'll just jump into one of these books. And I'm just looking at something that year 1 we're doing here. And these were paper-based printouts of animals that they had around the classroom. And the children were using the plus button, which lets us add content here. So we can take photos and it goes straight into the book. And then we can use our pencil tool. That can be just our finger with the younger children, or we can add sound. And so we were just identifying parts of animals on here. So the children were literally taking a photo. It was automatically cropped to fit the book. And then we add sound. It gives us a big red record button, and we just speak into the iPad, and it places the word over that individual element. And of course, then, if we're looking at adding phonetics to it, we could be talking about, this could be a handout to do with different shapes or different colors. We could be adding those sounds, and we could be adding letter shapes and just drawing on the screen. So we can be adding all those things together. Let's jump out of this book for a second. In a similar way, here's another one. This is how we tend to use it with early years and Key Stage 1. We might rather than get the children to create resources, create a bank of these resources. So this is just something we started putting together around letter shapes and letter sounds. And I've got a drawing here. We just roughly drew a tree, but of course that could be a photograph. It doesn't really matter. It's just using these same buttons under that plus, photos rather than the pen. I've got an audio recording of the phonetic sounds and the words that are coming here. So the t, t, t for trees, but these are just text boxes. It's just a text box, which are nice and big with a letter in, and we could be asking the children to reorganize these for us and put them into appropriate orders. We could put an extra letter in there to throw them off the scent a little bit if we want to add that level of complexity, depending on the individual children we're working with. We could be matching up sounds with letters, pictures with letters. It doesn't matter. We're just moving these text boxes around the screen. But it's all about creating a bank of resources that we can work with the children. And we're just exploring letters, sounds, and shapes as we're forming those different letters there. Now, I'm just going to show one final book. And this was a book that was created by a teacher across the whole of year 7 in this case, actually, but it could be used for any level, really. It's just that process. This was a history topic. And again, she was giving this out as a digital workbook for the children to complete. Well, we tend to get the children to create their own books, so this is kind of flipping that round a little bit. And she created this, so we've got these nice little exercises. So we've got some worksheets in here, but again, just text boxes. So this is even with year 7 saying, what's the most important reason? Why did people want to come to England in terms of the Norman conquest around all this historical time frame? And she's put some ideas down here. So these are just boxes. So overcrowding in their own lands, it could be gold and jewels. I think that's quite important. I'm going to put those around. I think I'll put these high up. Let's put wheat over here. And it's about getting the children to work in groups or in pairs and start organizing these and thinking, well, actually, I'm going to put them in this order. And there's no particular right or wrong answer to this. It's just opinion. But the whole idea here is that we're promoting the children discussing it, developing their own ideas, and then being able to present those back and explain those arguments to the rest of the class. So using the same app, we've got children from EYFS and Key Stage 1 creating resources, using resources we've created around phonics. And then we're using the same app here, where in this case it's year 7, but it could be any year, creating that content there where we're promoting debate and discussion and presenting our ideas back to a group. And in the same way as we go through, we've got a section here on Harold Godwinson and say, well, actually, the question is, why should he have been king and maybe why shouldn't he have been king? Let's put those arguments forward. We've just got an empty space. And that's really now for the children to start thinking, well, how do I present this information back in the best way? Is it going to be text or could I put some audio in here? Maybe I even want to make that little film in iMovie and put a film clip in there. So we're now moving on where we've got that flexibility here for the children to start thinking about the best way of presenting their content in that literacy spectrum, whether we've got these options here to present my particular take on this in my own way. So the iPads really just give us so much flexibility and freedom for creating so much content, whether the children are very young and just learning the letter shapes and the letter sounds, or whether we've got children going through a bit further on and developing debate and discussion skills and presentation skills and all the other things that we think about in that wider approach to literacy. So really, we're about done there, really, just as a first step to think about how we can use things built into the iPad to start promoting literacy across the wider curriculum, across those different age groups. And we're going to go on now and have a look at some really amazing tools to help us develop some of those skills.
Aren't we just? Incredible, as always, David. Inspirational. That's a webinar in its own. Never mind the rest of what we've got to share this afternoon. Yeah, I mean, most of that was just out of the box on the iPad as it comes. You're right that Book Creator tends to be the first name on the team sheet when I'm talking to schools about should there be any paid apps maybe that they'd want to use in their setting. It's just a real Swiss Army knife and suitable for any age group and any topic. So that's why I like Book Creator. It's a fabulous app. Also, extra tip with the text to speech that we saw in notes. If you select a foreign language keyboard, you can dictate a foreign language phrase into notes. And if you select a foreign voice as Siri, it will read the phrase with the correct pronunciation. Absolutely fantastic. If you want to know more about that, we have an enhancing MFL video on our YouTube channel. There'll be a link to that at the end. David, thank you. Always amazing. Now, I'm very, very excited because we've got our friends from Caligo joining us now. We've got Joshua, we have Sean, and a very, very special guest from St. James Primary School in Chorley in Lancashire. We've got Caroline with us, who's the literacy lead there. They've been using Caligo for a year or more now, and even pre-COVID. And I was lucky enough to go and see it 18 months or so ago, and the buzz in that classroom was just incredible. And for the next 25 minutes, we're going to find out why. So I'm going to stop my share, and Josh and or Sean, if you want to say hello, please join us. Join the fun.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you for the introduction. So sort of just to introduce the team really. So myself and Sean, we're here from Caligo, so we're based in the UK as well. So we look after the UK schools. So we have schools using Caligo all over the UK, right up into Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. But sort of just to go through the background quickly before I even share the app. So just to discuss more about the actual area of literacy we focus on. So primarily we're talking handwriting. However, we've recently branched out into spelling as well. And I say that's been aided massively by Sean. So Sean, in terms of context, in terms of experience-wise, been a primary teacher now for coming up to 7 years. So he has joined the team and he's brought really great knowledge in terms of the primary setting. And he's very much helped Caligo go from a very purely handwriting app to very much handwriting and spelling in a combination now. And I say Caroline will talk a little bit later about how she's been using in that sort of scenario in the classroom as well. But sort of a little bit of background really. So to sort of give a sort of credentials point really. So we're the only app approved for handwriting and spelling by the Department for Education. What they did was they went through the whole app in terms of learning outcome wise and tech wise in the classroom. And I say they gave us feedback and then they gave the approval for that as well. Not only this, we worked very closely with the National Handwriting Association when we first started out. Very key that we did this purely because the UK has so many different ways of writing each letter. I'm sure, as you know, as classroom teachers, there's so many different schemes to choose from. But one really key thing to note before we start is Caligo is completely customizable to however you teach handwriting in the classroom. So whether that's Nelson's, pen pals, combinations, or your own individual scheme we have seen, the chances are that we've covered all of those as well. But what I will do, let's say before I share my screen, so I'm just going to share my screen quickly with you all. And so if you do have any questions going through, please do ask away in the chat. Say colleague Sean, he'll be able to help in terms of, in terms of the classroom scenario, as well as his knowledge of Caligo as well. So please do feel free to ask questions as we go along. And I say I can touch on bits as we go through as well. So hopefully you should start to see my iPad screen now. Sean, can you just give me a thumbs up, mate, if you can see the screen?
Fine. I can see that. That's fine.
Okay, brilliant, Mason. So I'm just going to share Caligo with you all now. So one key thing to note, really, as I just started sharing the screen. So we recently, I say due to COVID, etc., we really wanted to improve the accessibility of Caligo. And we did this in two ways, by enabling both schoolwork and homework mode. What I mean by this, that is in terms of homework, that could be for remote working, obviously, because everything during lockdown, but say for homework purposes as well. The way children now access Caligo is very slightly different. They use QR codes now. So you probably notice quite a few apps now have gone to QR codes. And it's a very, really easy way for us to create that differentiation and that individualized learning. So just to sort of show you how that works. So on Caligo, the child will simply click the student space. They simply pick up their tablet. I say I'm just holding it up to a screen. But I say in the classroom, we see them printed off and stuck onto desks, pencil cases, diaries, for example. Totally up to you. We've seen it used in many ways. As soon as the child does that, they're automatically taken into their own lesson zone. So here, these are the lessons that have been opened for me as So in this case, Ezzy. So the key thing is the child next to Ezzy could be working on a completely different lesson. They say it's all up to the teacher within the teacher planning portal, which children get which lesson. But say they simply scan their QR code and they see the lesson they need to complete as an individual. So all they do is they'd simply click into, say, lion, which is the first word within this lesson plan, and say then they'd follow through the lesson nice and easily. It takes them all the way through, and then they'll complete it at the end and give them, they say, all the feedback throughout. The best way to show you Caligo's exercises is actually on the free mode. So the free mode, which is the modules button in the bottom right-hand corner, we've had some, say, really good feedback in terms of this being used in before and after school clubs, as well as, say, web play, for example, or say if there's not been any lessons set and they just want to, get the children onto the app and going for a quick session at the end, say at the end of the lesson, they do use that as well. But I'm going to open this just to show you exactly what Caligo is built from, really. So you can see here you've got your 4 key handwriting styles. So you've got your capital letters, you've got your lowercase, you've got your pre-cursive style, and you've got your continuous cursive as well. So say working from your EYFS right up to, say, year 6 and onwards in terms of the cursive side as well. So just to sort of show you the key fundamentals of how Caligo works, I'm just going to pop into lowercase. I say I'm just going to input a word. I say, just to know, this is, it's the free mode. This is where children can input their own words, their own spelling lists at break time, or they can choose some preloaded categories as well.
Write the letters of the word more following the models.
So the models being represented at the top are based on your handwriting policy in the school, and that's because you've customized Caligo to match that. So if I was to go down, round, and down again. So the key things Caligo picks up on is shape, direction, order, and line spacing. And it also pick up on pen lifts on cursive, which is really key. So how this is done is it's all based on AI technology. So Caligo's AI engine is very powerful. So it can assess, say, 30 children's handwriting results in the classroom, and say just like that. And say it provides that feedback live to the child. And then as a teacher, you can replay this all at a later date, say, or you could say see it in the classroom as well. But if I, for example, do the letter O, so I've actually gone completely the wrong direction on the letter O. However, if you saw that in the textbook, you actually think the formation's not too bad. And I say if the child was doing that on a handwriting sheet, and I say you've got 30 kids, how on earth do you keep track of, shape, direction, and order, and so on, as well as the general formation? So the overall goal. So I'm going to try and do this one well. So the overall goal is for the child to get a star. And what you would see is in the classroom, it actually does turn into a nice bit of friendly competition. Basically, it gives that child the outcome that they're trying to achieve. I say what you'll find is that they'll be like, miss, I've got 2 stars, I've got 3 stars on this one. It does turn into a nice, that's what we mentioned in terms of the engagement side. So Caroline will touch on that in a little bit as well. But it sort of gives, it makes handwriting fun and engaging rather than it being the very traditional, frankly boring teaching methods for handwriting. And we're trying to shake that up a bit, really. So if I complete the E here, okay, and then if I go through. So the key thing to note is the O has been picked up as incorrect, and so that's through the AI technology. The child then, it's all about repetition. So the child will be asked to repeat the letter O 3 times. Now, obviously, if the child continues to complete it the incorrect way, they'll be given the feedback live in the class. And obviously, you'll be able to see that again as a teacher. But what you'd like to see is you'd like to see the child making progression based on the writing model that's been represented at the top, and I say in the results at the bottom as well. And you'd obviously like to see the child making progress. If they're not, it's not to worry. All the results are recorded. There's all the data to look at later, and you can change the lesson plan going forward as well. And say then the child will go on and complete the full word as well. So it's not single letters. You say it can be full words. So for the older year groups, you can do some quite lengthy words, up to 15 characters, for example. So it's very much widespread across the year groups, and you can input some really key topic, subject words in there as well. So that's in terms of the overall summary in terms of the handwriting style. In terms it picks up shape, direction, order, and line spacing. Cursive's a very nice one because you don't have to throw the child in at the deep end straight away. What I mean by that is you can either do full word in one full go. So say the word more in one full go with optional entries. Or you can actually do it letter by letter. And what I mean by this is they do the letter M 3 times, O 3 times, R 3 times, for example. Then what they do is they do M and O and R and E. So they practice the letter groupings. But not only that, you're practicing the joins in between each letter as well. So whether that's the low join, high joins, and you can see exactly how they're doing based on that before they then go on to full word. But by breaking it up into those sections, you can see as a teacher exactly which part they're struggling with. So for example, if they've been doing pre-cursive lowercase previously, and they're now moving on to cursive, which bits are they struggling with? Maybe they're doing really well with the letter groupings, but when they go on to full cursive, maybe that's where they need a bit of additional help on there as well. So we have number formation. We've had some really good feedback, you know, especially from sort of when you move into the maths subject later in the day, in terms of just mainly the formation really on the numbers, but still a really key one. One I will show because it is AI powerful. And what I mean by that is it completely adapts the learning journey for the child within the exercise. And this is tracing lines. So tracing lines can be used in two contexts, pretty much. So whether that's early years in terms of EYFS, or actually if they're moving from singular to cursive style handwriting. So if I pop medium boxes and EL
Trace
to show you,
loops following the pattern.
so the really key thing to note is, say this can be done with a finger or a stylus, same with all of Caligo's exercises. So I'm just following the bot round now. So it's at their own speed, which is the really key thing. This is all about the individual learning. So they're not having to compete with anyone in the classroom. So, and then it'll go through. So based on how well I've done as a child, Caligo automatically reviews that. So it's made it a little bit harder for me here. So I'm going to try and go through as quick as I can because there's a lot to go over in a short space of time. So I'm just going to quickly go through. And so what you'll see again is it automatically gets harder again. So it automatically adjusts for the child. And I'll see, maybe this is their sort of ability level at the moment. This is just the level they're at. So you do see this quite often in the classroom. What it'll do is it'll reiterate the shape and formation they should be making. I'll see if they still continue to make the same mistakes. Caligo then recognises, and it will obviously change the learning pathway again. And this could be basically all 30 children could be doing different exercises. And what I mean by that is each child will have their own pathway. And at each point, it will either make it harder or easier, depending on how well they're doing. So let's say you could have all 30 children progressing at their own pace, which is really, really key. I say you've got your pencil pressure as well, and shapes, and I can outline them, but just to go over those two, so they're very more EYFS focused. So in terms of shapes, very simply identifying them, outlining the shapes. Pencil pressure is really key. One, for those children who are struggling with their pencil grips, those that are typically page carvers, those who are lacking confidence, say, Sean, from your experience in the classroom, you've seen that, I say, crop up quite a lot with younger children. Do you want to elaborate on that quickly?
Yeah, so what I've found, and I'm sure Caroline will be able to elaborate further as well, is that some children actually orally give you great ideas in English, for example, but when it comes to the writing side, that actually the writing is the barrier, the handwriting is a barrier for them. They're very capable of giving you the ideas, and they would be able to be capable of writing them down if they got over that mental barrier, if they can't form the letters correctly. So once you get past that barrier, actually the child is able to excel and show their true ability. So using software like Caligo enables for that opportunity to have that verbal feedback, those learning conversations with the children, especially with the replayable side, which I'm sure Josh will elaborate on further when you go into the student monitoring aspect of it. But what it does, it develops those fine motor skills. So as Josh mentioned, practicing tracing lines, pencil pressure, the shapes, it gives them that fine motor practice before heading into handwriting and covering the different letter styles and words that you can choose for the children on the.
Cheers, Sean. Say, just in terms of when we're talking about the replayable side, so the really key thing is that you can actually replay back exactly what the child's done. I say the mode I'm showing you at the moment in terms of the teacher side being on the app, this is all moving over to the web browser, which I'll show you shortly. However, if I pop into, say, let's go into Daniel, for example, and I click into Lion, I can play back in the exact speed the child's handwriting. So you can see here in terms of the direction on the L and I, as well as the O, and then the N's totally fine. You can also see the reattempts as well. And I say you'll be able to see this, as I'll show you in a second, on the web browser too, but it's very clever how it plays it back in real time. It gives you all the feedback that it gave to the child as well. And you can see this out, after the lesson's been completed, or within the lesson, there's actually a little rucksack button when the child is actually completing their lesson. And I say you can use that rucksack button to actually see why the child's been having, for example, I did the letter O and had to repeat that. You could click that and see exactly why the child's had to repeat that letter. Equally, we've actually seen more sort of year 2s and onwards actually using the rucksack button and actually self-evaluating themselves. To us, that's been really nice to see when gone into classrooms recently. But they use that rucksack button, they can click and they can play exactly what they've done. Especially when the teacher comes around and is asking them why do you think that's wrong? They can play it and they can have that conversation with the teacher there and then, which is really nice to see. I'm just going to switch over to my web browser now. So this is the key part. So in terms of going forward, Caligo app will be purely for the children to complete the lessons within. And I say the teacher side is moving completely to the web browser, purely because it's becoming really quite powerful. It's becoming a really powerful tool for teachers. So I'm going to show you this now. So I'm just going to share my screen with you all. I say, Sean, again, if you could let me know if that's popped up on yours.
Yeah, I can see that fine, Josh.
Okay, amazing. So what I'm within now is your teacher dashboard. So if I just pop into lessons here, so I'm within your teacher dashboard for Caligo right now. So for example, here, so I've got 8 lessons down on the left-hand side. However, this could be your whole half-term lesson planning down here. So the really key thing is you can open or disable them as you wish. If they're open, the child will be able to complete them as in the classroom. And if they're disabled, they're just sat here ready to go. So you can do all your termly lesson planning nice and easily. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how easy it is to create a lesson on Caligo. So I'm just going to do one for today. So if I just do Tuesday lesson 5, for example. Let's do, so for example, in description, it could be learning objectives. It could be notes. It's totally up to you how you use this. Say a few teachers use it if SLT or head of English, just wondering, what's the teacher been working on? And I can add that nice and easily. When I was talking about classwork and homework, it's just simply a tick box, and that correlates to the QR code for the child. But the really key thing, especially with catch-up being so important at the moment, that homework features coming into its, really come into itself. And I say it enables children at home on any device, tablet-wise, to actually complete their homework and actually catch up, say, outside of the classroom as well. But to show you how you can add exercise, so it's nice and easy. So if I just do some lowercase, actually I'll do cursive. I'll do some cursive ones to show you, because there's a few more options on cursive. So if I do double-lined, I say you've got optional entry points, really key, because obviously some schools do, some schools don't. So totally up to you. I'm going to do them without for now. If I can literally just type in and enter some words. So you can copy and paste them as well. So if you've got any pre-made lists on Word, shared documents within the school, websites, etc., you can do that as well. That's no problem. And I say from here, you can choose the different styles as well as the size of boxes. So the size of boxes basically determines the size of area the child has to perform the letter with them. So I can nice and easily add those to my lesson. Really good thing is you can actually combine. So if I was moving from singular to cursive style, like I talked about in the example, I would probably do, say, maybe start on lowercase or pre-cursive, then I'd move into tracing lines, then I'd move across to cursive. So it's up to you how you build your lesson. You can very much customize that to match how you want the children to flow within that. And so you can do all your usual customization with those as well, delete and disable. So it's really key. So we're talking in same blocks here, but in terms of what is the lesson, where are the children completing, what are they completing, and finally, who's going to be completing the lesson. So this is where, say, the individualized learning, this is bread and butter of Caligo really, is that you can choose, say, one child, you could choose a table of 4, say blue table, you could choose children of similar abilities, or you can in fact choose the whole classroom as well. It's totally up to you, but as I mentioned earlier, you could have one child working on one aspect or one lesson, and you could have a child literally right next to them working on another one, and they simply scan their QR codes, and they're doing the work that's tailored to them. Sean, is there anything you want to add in terms of that part at the moment, or?
No, nothing on that part. You've covered the differentiation sidebar there.
Okay, no worries. So the bit I'm going to go on to now. So this is Sean's brainchild. To be honest, so the Caligo library. So this is a tool we've started to develop, and so it's going to be really, really powerful as we continue to bulk it out over the summer. But say we've completed the English curriculum now. So we've worked with the DfE, and so we've worked with the government lists and so on to actually publish our English curriculum list within Caligo. So you're talking your CVC, your phonics, your high frequency words, they're all preloaded on here for you. Or you could actually go into specific year groups and you could actually choose key terminology and subjects, say topics within that year group. So for example, here, if I do root words ending in Y, for example, I can click through the preloaded lists and they change on the right-hand side. And I say you can customize these to match your different handwriting styles. And I say the key determinants, so entries, lines, etc. And all you can do is simply add those to your lessons. Once you've added that to your lesson, it automatically drags it into your teacher dashboard as if it was your lesson originally. And I say you can delete, add to, customize however you wish. But the really powerful thing is that they're all preloaded on there for you, ready to go. And so you've just got to choose which ones you like the look of and apply it to your students. One thing that is going to be pretty cool is we're not just stopping at English. You probably see here we have got science as well. So we are moving into other subjects. And say Sean's goal is to get 6 humanities on there. So we're talking English, science, mathematics, history, geography, and RE on there. And so they'll be on there in time for September. So come September, it's going to be really, really powerful because you could be doing your handwriting and spelling in the morning. Say year 4, for example, are working on an electricity topic in the afternoon. They can actually practice their key topic words. They're doing their handwriting. They're learning how to spell them. And then when they move on to the science lesson in the afternoon, they've already done that pre-work. So it's very much, we're trying to create a cross-subject tool. But in terms of the spelling side, that's where the powerful side comes in, because you can actually start taking it from just English into science, into maths, and you can practice those as well. As well as the numbers for maths as well. So you can practice the actual alphabetical words in terms of say add, and then you can practice the numbers on Caligo as well. But really nice to actually incorporate both of those in there. So in terms of actually seeing the results, so I say everything's moving over to the web browser version because it's going to be really, it's going to be a really powerful tool on here. So just to elaborate on the monitoring, so you can monitor via the whole classroom, or you can actually monitor via individual students. And what I mean by that is we have a simple red, amber, green RAG rating. And I say you can see all of the results for the classroom. You can see the percentage of success on the right-hand side here, and say the completion level as well. I say it says 34% purely because I've got so many students in my class at the moment, but say it'd say 100% and then 72 out of 100 on average for the classroom. If I was to click into Courtney here, I can click onto Rhino and I can see exactly the screenshots and say the results. So say the line spacing and then the direction on the H, I, and O, and the N was totally fine. And then I can see the reattempts as well on the letter H. So Courtney here hasn't recognized that she's done the wrong formation. So this is where you can change your lesson planning for future. To be honest, you'll probably see key themes pop up in the classroom. But I say that basically it's a full 360. It's impossible to keep track of 30 children in one go. Unless say you have like 6 adults in the classroom. But I say it gives you a chance to sit down later on, either when you're at home or I say after school, and see back the results. Just to note, they are screenshots on the web browser at the moment, but as we convert over from the app to web browser, they too will also be replayable like I showed you on the app as well. So you'll be able to play them back in real time as well. So one aspect we've just introduced is letter analysis. So this is a really, really cool one that teachers are quite excited about, is because for each individual student in the classroom, you can see the performance based on each letter. So I'm just going to let it load. It takes a couple of seconds because it loads quite a lot of data for the students, but it'll load in just a second. So you can see here, so I've got my students on the left-hand side and I've got A to Z on the scroller. So for example, here, letter D is of interest. So let's have a look. So you can see here, direction of letter D. I believe O is a key one for this classroom as well. So you can play those back. But what it enables you to do is it enables you to see the last 5 attempts. So actually, Courtney here, on her previous ones, I can see the O's are amber. However, on a previous attempt, she's now achieved a star. So hopefully now she'll go forward and she'll start to perform that letter really well. But you can also do the monitoring for individual students as well. So just to show, I'm just keeping track of time to make sure I don't go over too much. So if you pop into your students here individually, for example, a lot of teachers sort of said they're either going to use this for 1, parents' evenings, or 2, when they're working with the child individually, if they pull them aside, for example, because you can actually click in and you can see the results just for that child, and you'll be able to track progress individually over the year group, say over the term, say simply with percentage of success, and you'll be able to assess the letter analysis purely for that child. So if I load Courtney's now, so I could say to Courtney's parents nice and easily at parents' evening, okay, can you just make sure she focuses on A, D, H, I, for example, when she's working at home or over the summer holidays, and say it gives you that sort of 360 in terms of you can really focus on those key letters they need improvement on as well. So I've gone through that really, really quickly. It's a lot to take in, I appreciate, on a webinar. But say any questions, do fire away, and fire away at the end as well. I believe now I'm switching over to Caroline, who's going to basically talk about the experience she's had at St James's Chorley. And I say they've been using Caligo for quite a while now. But yeah, over to you, Caroline.
Thanks, Josh. Thank you. So at St James's, before Caligo, teaching handwriting was quite time consuming. It was costly and often had little impact. We would teach handwriting sessions in lower school, and these sessions consisted of the teacher introducing a letter formation or a group of letters. The children would then practice in a handwriting book. The teacher would aim to get round as many children as possible, often only giving feedback to a handful of children. We found that for some children who had developed poor formation, they would revert back to their previous habit the second they were left independently. In Key Stage 2, handwriting would be taught through a teaching assistant working with individuals or groups of children. This took a lot of time, and often we found it was squeezed from the timetable. But now we use Caligo. It has transformed our teaching of handwriting and had a phenomenal impact on our children's confidence and ability to use cursive script accurately with flow. The children are able to log in quickly using their QR code and work on their handwriting independently. Caligo has a fantastic bank of lessons that a teacher can select from for their class, or they can quickly and easily create their own bespoke lessons. The work can be easily differentiated so that each child has a tailored programme for them. Our children are self-motivated and love earning stars for great progress. With children receiving instant feedback, they can see how to improve their letter formation every time they input their attempt. The teacher can also go back after a lesson to watch playbacks of their children's handwriting, supporting the teacher in planning next steps and spotting errors in formation for each child. Handwriting practice can slip into our timetables on a daily basis and is no longer squeezed. During lockdowns, when children were learning remotely, they could access Caligo at home, meaning they could easily practice and continue work. Using Caligo has had a fantastic impact on our handwriting. Children are now able to confidently use cursive handwriting, and we have a lot fewer children needing to continue to practice their handwriting in Key Stage 2. Those that do, it can be set as an independent task and not taking precious time away from the teaching assistants. As a school, we can highly recommend Caligo to transform your practice.
Excellent. Thank you. And what a well-designed app. And I think, seeing how that teacher feedback is presented just tells me that it's been really well thought out, and I guess you've sort of tweaked that over time based on the feedback from your users.
Yeah, so it's not stopping there. So in terms of what I've shown you just now, so it's very much about, say, nice easy data to read, target, what the areas for to target and to focus on. We're actually developing a AI-powered teaching assistant as well. What I mean by that is, based on the results in the classroom, Caligo will automatically recommend lessons for individual students as well as whole classrooms. So based on the results, it will automatically build a lesson with already pre-populated spelling lists, and tracing lines, etc., and it'll recommend it to the teacher as well. So it's continually growing. But yeah, it's
Fantastic.
exciting.
Caroline, if I may come back to you, when I came to your showcase evening, it was the enthusiasm from the children that really struck me, and some of those examples that we saw were literally black and white, night and day, in a very short space of time. Could you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, I mean, the children are really excited to do handwriting now. I think previously, when we said it was handwriting, you might have a very small handful of children that would get excited. Whereas now, moving on to the app, the children are excited. It's technology. They want to earn those stars. Putting up on the big screen in the classroom, you can put up your class list, and they like to compete for who can get more green spots and encourage each other. And we've found that it translates into children's books just after a short time on Caligo. They're then improving their handwriting in their books.
Excellent. Wow. Thank you. Caroline, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day. Go and get yourself a cup of tea. Fabulous. So speaking of transformative technology and well-presented feedback and motivated children and gamification, leads us nicely on to our friends at Finetti. So Kim, I'm going to stop sharing and hopefully you will be able to take over.
Marvellous. Hello.
Hello, there we go.
Can you see me? That's brilliant. Hello. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you.
This has been I've learned so much already this afternoon just listening to everything else, and I cannot wait now to go off and play with notes and the voice areas of notes and everything. But what was interesting about that, when David explained about voice, it actually, we all know children find voice tech really easy. They find it second nature and they're not really afraid of it, whereby as older people, we tend to be a bit more cautious about different technologies, but kids love voice. And what we have created, I just want to tell you a little bit about the technology behind our platform before I tell you what our platform is. So you'll be familiar with the likes of Alexa and Siri and the voice technology that you're used to, what's the weather, etc. Now, that type of voice technology is based on a particular type of tech called command and control. So you ask a question and it looks through its database and it returns a result for you. Reading and our technology is very different from that. Reading, read speech as it is actually a completely different voice pattern to conversational speech. And so we realised that there was a great opportunity to build an app that would help and encourage children to read. But at that particular time, there was no voice technology that could support it. So we worked for the last few years with the University of Edinburgh, and we've created this voice technology, which is specifically built for children reading. It's got a really high accuracy level, and that's because we spent a great deal of time travelling all around the UK recording children's voices reading in school libraries, in classrooms, in playrooms, and pretty well all different environments to ensure that we got a really good data set of children's voices. Now, our actual voice technology works with all UK accents, including those where English is an additional language. It works really well in that context, and it works really well with special needs and blended reading, because obviously children don't read the same way that we read. And another thing that's really important to know about our tech is that it's very safe and it's very secure. When you're thinking and working with children's data, it's imperative that, whatever you use, that you can absolutely trust and rely upon. So what's Finetti? Finetti is an app. It's a reading app where children will go on. They'll go onto the story that they've chosen from you'll see in a moment with our demonstration, from their book bag that their teacher has allocated to them. They'll go on. They'll read aloud, and as they read aloud, the words change colour. They go green when they get the words correct, and the words will grey out when they're either spoken incorrectly or they miss a word. And it's all about, there's no sort of, warnings, there's no red or flashing. It's all about supporting children with their reading. It's all about encouraging them to just flow and to continue to read more. It's all about reading practice. If they struggle, they don't know a word, you double tap and then Phonetti will read the word for them. It allows them to repeat it and then reread the sentence. And at the end of every book that they read, there'll be a fanfare and there'll be stars. And the stars will be relevant to the accuracy level that the child has achieved. In terms of the content, there are hundreds of books in there, and that are all kind of built into Phonetti. And we are also working at the moment with other reading schemes to get more and more reading schemes into the platform as well. And there's a lot of that coming from September. The teacher portal. Now, this is where the teacher will manage their classes, allocate books to children, either individual children or class cohorts or reading groups. And then the children will obviously get all of that. Vicky is going to show you in a moment how they link that with their QR codes and everything. But basically, this is where they allocate all of the books, but this is also where they get all of the phenomenal data in the dashboard, so they can see at a glance that, which children have been reading, at what accuracy level, and which children haven't been reading. And that's really, really important, because it allows teachers to use their extremely limited resources and focus their attentions in the direction of children that need it the most. And, we know that's important today. We know that it's, the reality is 200,000 children will leave school next month, leave primary school, not having reached that level for reading that's required for that point in their life. And we know reading is the foundation of all learning, and they need to be able to be confident readers to go on to that next stage of their learning, which is why reading is so important. We all know all of that. We also know that reading aloud is a particularly important life skill. It creates confidence, and it actually allows them to go through their lives being able to just literally be able to present, when it, through all their life. So reading aloud is equally as important as just learning to read. And that's really important at the moment as we work with children, trying to sort of, level up the playing field as we help them, those children that need catching up. And, again, children, especially, there's so many children that, you ask them, do you like reading? Not so sure. Do you like using apps? Yes, I do. How about if you could read on an app? And suddenly their attitude changes for a lot of kids. And we've seen that so much. We've spent a lot of time with teachers, with children, with parents. Teachers tell us that it makes a material difference when they use Phonetti to the reading. It becomes almost the virtual reading assistant. Parents love it because it feels like guilt-free screen time, and children, well, kids just love using Phonetti. I think, when it comes to the fact that kids can use Phonetti at home and in school, so it becomes that virtual book bag. There are a lot of parents out there that don't sit down with their children to read, not because they don't want to sit down with them, but because they can't. Maybe they haven't got the skills themselves. So this is a really extraordinary tool for schools, for home, and especially for children. So if I may now, I'm going to pass over to Vicky, who's going to give you a practical demonstration. Thank you so much.
Perfect, brilliant. I do apologise for the delay. Okay, so firstly, obviously, you click on our little axolotl, which is our Phonetti mascots, and that will take you into our Phonetti app. What we do to start off with is obviously teachers can, and I'll show you on the portal very shortly, but teachers will obviously register all of their pupils through the portal. When they do that, it actually provides a unique QR code for every single pupil. And to access that and add it to the app, you simply click the link reader button. You've got your camera there, and just show the QR code. She says, what's that? Doesn't want to play. I think I might actually already have that link reader, but that will then link the new reader to the iPad for you. And then what the child does is they can choose their own avatar to go into their unique library, virtual library of reading books that have been allocated to them by teaching staff within the school. Simply, they tap on the book bag here, which will bring them into that library for them. So once they're into this page, they'll be able to see all stories that have been allocated to them and are ready to view and to be read by each of the child. So I'm going to choose one of my stories and show you how it works. The laughter in the playroom did not include Ted anymore, for he had been left in a pile of toys behind the playroom door. He lay with a giraffe of much renown, a half-chewed pile of coloured blocks, and a one-eyed circus clown. As you can see there, the words are highlighted green as I have read them aloud. The fact that I missed out the section there that says Gerard Stringlegs has simply greyed out. So it shows the child that they've missed the word or misread it, and it allows them to see that obviously they need to practice that word or that they can attempt to repeat it. They can simply double tap on the word and Phonetti will read it back to them. Unfortunately, on screen share at the moment, it won't allow me to show you that function. But as I say, it will read it to you, and then the child can simply repeat the word so that they are able to make that word go green. They then read through the whole story. I'm not going to read all 23 pages to you right here, right now. So once they get to the end of the story, Phonetti calculates their score. Again, here you would hear Phonetti in the background saying, well done, you've got 3 stars, that's amazing. And it's all about fanfares and encouragement and rewards for the children. Once they've finished the book, they can obviously then go on to choose another book that's been allocated to them, but equally they can check their progress on their history of what they've read so far through the app. So they can click on the rewards section here, and that will show them how long they've been reading for in sections, also how many books they've been reading in sections, and how many consecutive days they've been reading for. So that just gives them a slight overview of where they're at within the app. For a more detailed option and view, they can see here, if in the progress, they can see exactly what stories they have been reading and what accuracy levels they've achieved. They can also see how long it's taken them to read the book and how many times they've read the book. So, for example, the Detective Catfish story, the pupil has got 94%, but they've read it 4 times. So that may well have been that actually the first time they read it, they only achieved 1 star. So they've reread the book and increased their accuracy, and they've managed to get to the 3 stars to complete the story at the best accuracy that they have been able to reach. You can also, as a child, go into the settings section and they can change their avatar. We've got a selection there that they can choose to their preferred picture, just to kind of add that little bit of gamification and exciting kind of information for them. So once the reader's finished, they can just simply switch reader, and then the iPad is ready for another child to log into that iPad. Obviously, if your school has one-to-one iPads, then that's absolutely amazing, because obviously that pupil can just stay logged in at all times, which is absolutely amazing. The good thing is, as we know with iPads, is obviously this is 100% working in schools. It been tested and tested in a classroom of 30 children, and we have had amazing feedback with that. We've had teachers come back to us and say, like, they kind of have rooms, or they've set them up into an area of 6 children and have like a little book corner, phonetic corner they call it, and where they've got 6 or 7 children reading the stories all at the same time, and that hasn't affected the speech recognition on the individual pupils' app. So that has been amazing feedback. If I now just stop sharing my iPad screen, so our schools portal is web-based. So if I just log on to that for you. Okay, can you now see a dashboard? Someone can confirm.
Yep, certainly can. All looking good.
Excellent, perfect. So all of the information and all of the reading that each of the pupils does is all in real time. So as soon as a pupil has read the story and closed that book down, it automatically updates onto the dashboard and onto the schools portal. So if I actually refresh that, it will automatically show the story that I have just read as well, will be added now to the system. Okay, right, so on your dashboard, this is an overview. This is where you can see all of your classes. This is more specifically paramount to head teachers, because obviously head teachers are going to want to have access to see all of their classes and pupil overview. Equally, if you're part of a MAT or an academy, the owners of the academy are able to view all of the schools within their MAT, and we've even got some areas where we've actually got little kind of inter-house academy competitions going on at the moment, which obviously has been really exciting, and what have you, for the schools to kind of compete against their friends in their other schools. So here I'm going to choose a class that I'm interested in, and what you can also do is you can choose the date range that you are interested in looking at the data for. So this can simply be by allocating or choosing specific date ranges, but it can equally be done by the drop down list here, so that you can see data over the last 7 days, last month, the whole of this year, and so on and so forth. So here you can see as an overview of your class cohort. So you can see the children that are in this specific class, and you can see the reading time that each of those pupils have been reading. Each different colour represents the different reading levels. We have 6 levels within the app, and that doesn't mean to say that level 1 is for year 1 and level 6 is for year 6. We all know that children are all on different learning journeys. They're all at different stages of reading. Therefore, they are able to access, and the teachers can allocate any of the books within any of the levels to any age group. You can also see here the accuracy levels that each of the pupils have been achieving. So for example, with Johnny, you can see that obviously reading levels 1, 2, 3, and nearly 4, he's received 100%. He's got 91% actually on level 4. So now he's actually giving level 5 a try. And then obviously when any of the pupils are ready for level 6, that will then show there as well for you. Equally, if you scroll down here, you can see the same information on reading time and accuracy. However, this time it's more in date view. So this is brilliant information for children that have maybe used the app at home. So a child may come into you and say, oh, miss, I done 15 minutes on phonetic last night. Well, the teacher can instantly go onto the school's portal and see that that particular child actually done 25 minutes of reading. So they can say, well, actually, no, you've done better than you thought you did. So absolutely amazing. And you know what? You've got 100% accuracy. So really, really proud. Have a dojo or whatever your scheme is at your school. So that, as I say, is a class overview. Here, if you click the teachers section, you can have, or see, sorry, a list of the teachers that are already assigned to your school. To add a teacher to your school, it's as simple as clicking the Add Teacher button, simply putting in their email address and their first and last name, send an invite. That will then email to them a link where initially they will register and they will automatically be added onto your school's portal. If you wanted to add a few teachers at a time, you can use our CSV template to obviously do that in bulk rather than individually. You can also see here who has been invited, who's accepted, and who's still pending, so you can give someone a nudge if needed. On the classes tab, this is where, again, you can see all of your classes. You can add a new class by clicking on the top right-hand corner where your add a class button is, write the class name in, and then that class will automatically be added to this list. On this particular view, this is where you can manage books to a whole class cohort. So you would click on the Manage Books section here, and you have images of all of our stories that are on our Phonetti app. With this, you can click on the top right-hand corner to look at those reading levels so that you only see specific levels, or you can see the full library, depending on what you want to access. This section here is really good for adding kind of curriculum content to your class. So, for example, we all know Year 2 is Great Fire of London. Very excited about that. We've actually got a book coming out which will be launched in September for that particular subject. And so with that book, obviously you would allocate it to the whole of Year 2. However, as I say, we can also allocate to individual pupils, as I'll show you in a moment. To add a book, you simply scroll over the book that you want to add, assign to the class, and that will automatically be added to the app for every child within that class. You can also see here book information, very brief information, just tells you the level that we've put it at, brief description, and what categories we have allocated the book against. More so here, you can actually preview the book as well. So just for ease, rather than you having as kind of teachers and educators having to go into the app to know which books are appropriate for allocating to particular classes or children, you can see the PDF version here, and you can scroll through to see the content and whether that is suitable for that particular pupil or class. If I go back to classes here, you can manage your class by clicking on that Manage Class section. And here you can see a list of the pupils. And again, you can manage the books specifically to the child rather than the class. So you can see here now that actually when you hover over it says assigned to pupil rather than assigned to class. So that will assign to that individual pupil only. You can equally go to the Pupils tab, where here you have a list of every single pupil within your school. Again, this is really invaluable data for head teachers, English leads, and key stage leads as well. So they can see all information for each pupil that they're interested in. We've got 2 stages. You're either admin or teacher. Admins can see everyone. They can see all the pupils. They can see all the classes. Teachers can see their individual classes and information that is specific to them. And you can add more than one teacher to a class. So, for example, an admin would also be the SENCO, because if the SENCO was working with an individual child, they would want to allocate stories to those specific children as well, and they can do so by just being logged on as admin. And to do that, it is just as simple as demoting. Obviously, the admin can do this. You can demote from admin and promote to admin. We've made the portal as easily accessible and easily manageable as we possibly can, because the point for us is we are trying to help teachers free up their time. We appreciate that obviously there isn't enough hours in the day to do constant one-to-one reading, and reading aloud, as Kim mentioned earlier, is the cornerstone of children's literacy, and we want to encourage children to read aloud as much as possible, and so the app is absolutely ideal. Also, we are also approved by the Department for Education's Hungry Little Minds campaign as well, which is an absolute honour for us to be part of. I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I didn't time myself, so I don't know where I'm at. But
that's perfectly all right. There's a lot to share, isn't there? A lot to share. So thank you so much, and thank you for being calm under pressure as you got those distractions at the beginning. Well done. So thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Kim. And again, I just saw echoes when we were sort of hearing about our friends at Caligo. You know, almost as if they've been developed side by side, but you kind of weren't aware of each other, were you? Until a few months ago. So brilliant. Now, just some resources to quickly share with you as we wrap up. So if you want to know more about what David was talking about, then there's a great resource on the Apple Teacher website. This is free CPD from Apple. QR codes there. One is the overview. The lower one is the sign up page. What I would suggest you do is we will post this video to the MCC YouTube channel and perhaps zap those QR codes then when you've got a little bit of time. But well worth doing, and you can earn the Apple Teacher badge, which is fast becoming recognised across education institutions. We have our MCC YouTube channel, and we've made a good old series of these videos now, probably 20, 25 or so of them that we've posted. They're around 30 minutes long, but when we're doing a deep dive on a subject like we are today, then a little longer. We've got one about MFL that we did 3 or 4 months ago, so do take a look at that one. But they're all on the MCC YouTube channel. Free for anybody, so share with your colleagues, and we'd love to see you on the YouTube page. And if this is something you want to know more about, we've put together a literary-focused iPad toolkit for schools, consisting of iPads for the class and one for teacher, cases, charge trolley, device management, all pre-configured by us before we deliver it, and 3-year subscriptions for both Caligo and Finetti. And all of that comes to £460 a month or thereabouts. If you've already got the iPads, drop us a line at education@mccdigital.com, and we'll of course tailor a package for your setting should you so require. Again, this will be posted on our YouTube channel, so if there's colleagues that have missed it that you know would be interested in what we've talked about today, then absolutely feel free to share that video with them. That'll be on in the next few days. Thank you. Just going to check the time. I think we're pretty much 1700 exactly. So thank you for bearing with us. I hope you've enjoyed the content. We've gone through a lot, and do drop us a line at education@mccdigital.com if there's anything you'd like to know more about. I'd like to thank all our contributors today. Thank you so much. It's been a fantastic session. We hope you've enjoyed it. We'll see you again. Thank you. Bye-bye.